Good afternoon and welcome from a very, very warm and sunny England. I hope you're all well and enjoying the day and that you are, well, welcome and that you're just taking a little bit of time out to relax, which I'm hoping you're doing. Today, as I mentioned earlier on that I was going to dip into a bit of Kahlil Gibran earlier today. Well, I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to talk about talking. The talking is a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because people say a lot when they talk, and they say a lot, even sometimes often say an awful lot more when they don't talk. It's often that bit in between the speaking and the sentences, the quiet parts, the sort of well anyway, and then the silence that kind of often gives the game away in many conversations. I do talk a lot, I've said that, and I'm sure that many of you realise that by now, that I do have a lot to say. Whether it's interesting or not, who knows? But I do talk a lot. So I'm going to read for you from The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran, and it's just a tiny little section, and it's on talking. And then a scholar said, and he answered saying, "Speak of talking." And he answered saying, "You talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts, and when you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart. You live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. For thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly." I mean, how gorgeous is that? For thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly. So you need that space, don't you? That's what he's saying, in between what you're saying, what you're trying to say, and what you're trying to sort of put out there. There are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk, and without knowledge or forethought, reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. In the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. When you meet your friend on the roadside, or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the colour is forgotten and the vessel is no more. I'm going to read that again because I think it's so poignant and it's so wise. There's so much information in there. Let's see if we can try and get through this together, try and understand it together. And then a scholar said, "Speak of talking." And he answered saying, "You talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts, and when you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart. You live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. For thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly. There are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk, and without knowledge or forethought reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. In the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the colour is forgotten and the vessel is no more. I think that's so fascinating. I mean, sorry, I printed it out on a piece of paper. I think that's so true and so fascinating, isn't it? I think let's just kind of rewind a minute and go back to Kahlil Gibran. He was Lebanese American, migrated to America. He was born in 1883 and he died at the age of 48 in 1931. His mother was French Lebanese and he could speak Arabic and French and obviously then English as he came to the States. And he was a really creative little boy. He used to apparently just love drawing. He used to draw on every surface that he could find. And when he didn't have any paper, he used to go outside and draw in the snow or draw in the dirt. When he was about 5, apparently, he got a little bit of paper that he had that was saved, and he dug some holes in the ground and he planted the paper, hoping that the paper was going to grow into paper trees, which I think is a really interesting idea. It's the kind of thing that my children used to do. And I think that's really fascinating. So he loved drawing. So I think he's sort of foremost really an artist, but he was also obviously, you know, a philosopher, which he hated being categorized a philosopher, and a great poet and a kind of a man of huge wisdom really. He was brought up as a Maronite Christian in a predominantly Muslim country, and the Christians, the Orthodox and the Maronites and the other Christians were persecuted at that time. But he also was fascinated by sort of Sufi mysticism and Islam and Arabic culture and folk stories and sort of fairy tales, really, I suppose. So all of those things fed his kind of fervent imagination, and that I think had a lot to do with how he managed to write such kind of almost kind of well, very learned and almost academic texts. Huge amount of wisdom. I mean, he grew up in the most gorgeous countryside, and it was just an idyllic life growing up. And then it just became harder and harder and harder as his father lost all his money, and they came to America. His father lost all his money, but his mother was a massively dominant force in his life, and he absolutely adored his mother, and he was kind of very, very close to her, and I think she was a huge influence on him. So all of those kind of ideas of nurturing and love and sort of that lovely, you know, warmth that he got from his mother definitely comes through in the wisdom of his work. But I think let's go then now back to this idea about talking, and speak of talking is the question this scholar asks. Speak of talking, well, that in itself is a really interesting idea, isn't it? I mean, how amazing to just sort of think, well, speak of talking. And he said, well, you know, when you talk, you cease to be at peace with your thoughts. Well, I think that can be true to some extent, but also I find that talking helps me to find that space of peace. You know, I live alone at the moment, and my children always said to me, Mummy, you should just hire somebody to talk to. Well, now I'm talking to you, and with you I probably don't need to do that, but I do really enjoy a good natter, a good chat, and I really love finding out about people, where they come from, what they do, how they do it, and why they do it, and I find it fascinating, the thought process and the way people kind of get from A to Z or A to Z. You know, sometimes people go the direct route, sometimes people go round and round and round and round in circles, sometimes people do a whole kind of wiggly line to get out what they want to say. Sometimes it's very difficult, isn't it, to say what you want to say when it's something really important. And I do find that very hard. I mean, I do find confrontation a real problem, and I don't enjoy it. And I will often very hibernate within myself and not speak. Perhaps I'll write a poem or get it out that way, or write myself a letter about how I'm feeling. But I've tried more and more as I grow older to actually get what I want to say out, and I'm trying to do it in a sort of more cohesive way where I don't sort of tie myself up in knots. And it's not always easy. And I think some of this is very wise, what he says. When you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart, you live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. So maybe living in your lips means that you're just babbling on about nothing, and it ends up diverting you and not making you actually focus on what you should be doing because you're too busy chitter-chattering and gossiping or something. I don't know. My children always used to say to me when I used to pick them up from school, I always used to get sort of waylaid and talk to people on my way to getting them from the classroom. And it's just because I really enjoyed seeing people, and it was really lovely to see smiley, happy faces, or to find out if somebody was okay, if they weren't okay. And my children, sometimes my daughter especially, used to get really cross at me and just say, "Mummy, you talk too much. You just talk too much." She's quite a sort of silent one, silent and deep thinker. And sometimes that's a really good thing, and sometimes it's not. So the other thing that it says here is that in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. So sometimes if you do babble along too fast, I suppose, you kind of kill the thought. You kind of, everything sort of, dissipates, and you don't remember what you were here to say in the first place, I suppose. There are those among you who seek the talkative. Well, actually, let's go back. For thought is a bird of space that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings but cannot fly. Then you kind of suffocate what you want to say, I suppose. If there are too many words, you don't actually get it out. And there are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. Yeah, I think people will find people to talk to, just to talk nonsense to, because they don't want to be on their own. They don't like their own company. Sometimes I end up talking to myself. Sometimes I end up talking to my dog who died, and I'm always sort of chatting to him throughout the day. Cosmos, should we go and see who's at the door? Cosmos, should we go and make a cup of tea? Things like that. It's quite, I think I must be getting a bit bonkers. It's quite comforting though. The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk, and without knowledge or forethought, reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. So maybe, I suppose, if you've had a couple of glasses of wine, you might say something that perhaps you don't understand or you don't realise you're saying, but it's actually the truth. Or perhaps you start a conversation and you say things which can be a bit hard-hitting and a bit too true, and that's always quite difficult for people to hear, isn't it? And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. In the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. Imagine your spirit dwelling in rhythmic silence. I mean, that is just such a profound image. It's such a lovely image that your spirit is dwelling in rhythmic silence. So deep within you, deep within your body, within your being, within that 97 or whatever it is, 70% water, and all your blood and guts and everything else, is your spirit dwelling in rhythmic silence when you're not speaking. Sort of like a tea bag that's been gently stirred at the bottom of a cup, I suppose, of hot water. Just that lovely, watching the kind of the ripples on the top of the cup, and the tea bag just wallowing in rhythmic silence, waiting to be tasted, waiting to be heard. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the colour is forgotten and the vessel is no more. To think that his soul, the person that you're talking to, her soul, their soul, will keep the truth of your heart within them. But they won't tell it in words. They will remember it deep within that rhythmic silence of their soul, within the rhythmic silence of their being. They will keep those words, the truth of what you say, in their heart. When the colour is forgotten and the wine is no more. I mean, wonderful. It's just such a wonderful analogy. And I think that, when you fall in love with somebody, or when you have a relationship that's profoundly, deeply moving for you, whether it's a relationship with a significant other, partner, or whether it's a relationship with a best friend or, a childhood friend, even if that person's not around you anymore, I certainly go back into that sort of hive of memories, sort of whizzing, whirring memories, into the deepness, into the stillness of that, into the eye of that storm of memories. And I will pull out the memory and the words and the feeling and the truth from what those people said all those years ago. Maybe I won't always remember it exactly as it was, but it will kind of be remembered, I suppose, as my soul wants it to remember, which is just the way I quite like it, really, especially these days. So yeah, I think that's an incredibly profound piece of writing. It's only two small little paragraphs, those two just there, but it says it all, doesn't it? Speak of talking. I think it's just wonderful. And I am going to now read to you one small paragraph which I'm going to leave you with today, because it's a gorgeous day and I'm going to go outside, I think, and when the sun goes down a little bit, and do a bit of clearing up in the garden and get outside in the fresh air. It's Master, what of time? So, and an astronomer said, Master, what of time? And he answered, you would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. You would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. Of time you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch it flowing. Yet the timeless in you is aware of time's timelessness, and knows that yesterday is but today's memory, and tomorrow is today's dream. And that which sings and contemplates in you is still dwelling with the bounds of that first moment which scattered the stars into space. Who among you doesn't feel that his power to love is boundless? And yet who does not feel that very love, though boundless, encompassed within the centre of his being, and moving not from love, thought to love thought, nor from love deeds to other love deeds, and is not time even as love is, undivided and paceless? I'm going to read that one more time, and I'm going to leave you with those thoughts today. And an astronomer said, Master, what of time? And he answered, you would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. You would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. Of time you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch it flowing. Yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness, and knows that yesterday is but today's memory, and tomorrow is today's dream. And that which sings and contemplates in you is still dwelling within the bounds of that first moment which scattered the stars into space. Who among you doesn't feel that, with his power to love, is boundless? And yet who does not feel that very love, though boundless, encompassed within the centre of his being, and moving not from love thought to love thought, nor from love deeds to other love deeds, and is not time even as love is, undivided and paceless? We could have a whole huge discussion about time. We could go on for hours and hours about time, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to leave you with the thought that we're in the moment now, and tomorrow is a whole nother day. So there's no point worrying about it. Just enjoy this moment where you are in this space now. Enjoy the sunshine or the rain or the night or the morning or the afternoon like me, and take good care of yourselves. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that might bring you a little bit of stillness and peace within the core of your being, within that place. What was it that he says earlier on about how the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in the rhythmic silence. So I hope you get a little bit of rhythmic silence today, and that your spirit can dwell in it. Lots and lots of love. Have a fantastic afternoon, evening, whatever, nighttime, morning, and take good care of yourselves. And let me know if there's anything you'd like me to read. If there's anything you'd like to share with me, I'd be more than happy to do it, as I've said before. It'd be really fascinating if you could kind of educate me and open my eyes to what really moves you, what pieces of literature, or what you would like to discuss. Anyway, lots of love. Take care. Have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Bye bye.